Welcome to Industry TV Network. Please hit the like button, share, and subscribe. In this video, we'll be touching on the life and times of Roger Troutman. Roger Troutman was born in Hamilton, Ohio. He was the fourth of 10 children. A graduate of Central State University, his first band was called the Crusaders. However, they are not to be confused with the jazz group featuring Joe Sample and Wilton Fender. Troutman's band played in Cincinnati and recorded a single, Busted Surfboard, Seminole. The band members were Rick Shoney, Roy Beck, Dave Spitzmiller, and Denny Neibold. Troutman had formed various other bands with his four brothers, including Little Roger and the Vals, and Roger and the Human Body. In 1977, he and the Human Body issued Freedom, their first single. Within 2 years, Roger and his brothers were discovered by George Clinton, who signed the newly christened Zapp to his Uncle Jam record labels in 1979. The original lineup consisted of Roger Troutman, Larry Troutman, Lester Troutman, Terry Troutman, Gregory Jackson, and Bobby Glover. Zapp made their professional television debut on the first and only Funk Music Awards show. A year later, as Uncle Jam Records was forced to close, Troutman signed with Bootsy Collins under Rubber Band Music to Warner Brothers Records and released his self-titled debut, Zapp, which yielded More Bounce to the Ounce, produced by Collins, co-produced, written, composed, and performed by Troutman. The song peaked at number 2 on the Billboard Soul Singles chart in late 1980. The debut album reached the top 20 of the Billboard 200. From 1980 to 1985, Zapp released the gold-selling albums Zapp, Zapp 2, Zapp 3, and the new Zapp for You, including the top 10 R&B singles, Be Alright, Dance Floor, I Can Make You Dance, Heartbreaker, It Doesn't Really Matter, and Computer Love. Throughout Zapp's history, around 15 musicians participated. In 1993, Zapp released their biggest selling album, Zapp and Roger, All the Greatest Hits. It featured remixed cuts of Troutman's solo singles along with a new single, Slow and Easy, featuring vocalists Shirley Murdock and Ronnie Diamond. The album sold over 2 million copies. The album Zapp 4, backed by popular demand, was released in 2002 by the remaining brothers after the deaths of Roger and Larry. In 1981, Troutman cut The Many Facets of Roger, his first solo album, featuring a funk cover of Marvin Gaye's I Heard It Through the Grapevine, which went to number 1 on the R&B singles chart. The album sold over 1 million copies. The album also featured the hit So Rough, So Tough, which was similar to More Bounce, as were most Roger Zapp singles during this time. The same year, Troutman recorded with Parliament Funkadelic on the band's final Warner Brothers album, The Electric Spanking of War Babies. In 1984, Troutman issued his second solo album, The Saga Continues, which featured the singles Girl Cut It Out, It's in the Mix, which was dedicated to Soul Train and its host Don Cornelius, and a cover of Wilson Pickett's In the Midnight Hour, which featured gospel group The Mighty Clouds of Joy. In 1987, Troutman scored his most successful solo album with Unlimited, carried by the hit I Wanna Be Your Man, which rose to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 1 on the R&B chart. Alongside his successful career as Zapp member and solo artist, Troutman also became a producer and writer for other artists, including Shirley Murdock, whose 1985 platinum debut featuring the Roger-produced hit As We Lay. He also produced for Zapp member Dale DeGroat on his solo efforts. In 1988, Troutman made an appearance on Scritti Politi's third album, Provision, providing talkbox vocals on the songs Boom, There She Was and Sugar and Spice. 3 years later, Troutman released his final solo album with Bridging the Gap, featuring the hit Everybody Get Up. He worked with Elvis Costello on the song The Other Side of Summer, and in 1989, NBA Entertainment selected Troutman among a variety of candidates to record a tribute song called I'm So Happy for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Troutman toured after the release of all the greatest hits. He was invited to appear as guest artist on several hip-hop albums, including Snoop Dogg's 1993 debut Doggy Style. In 1995, he was featured on Eazy-E's posthumous album, Straight Off the Streets of Emma F. and Compton, on Eternal E. The same year, Troutman performed vocals on Tupac and Dre's single California Love. The song became Troutman's biggest selling and most successful single to date, as the song reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and sold over 2 million copies. It also received a Grammy nomination for Best Rap Performance by a Duo or Group. Troutman then produced a top 10 R&B hit cover of The Persuaders' Thin Line Between Love and Hate, performed by Shirley Murdock and R&B group H-Town, with Talkbox by Troutman. The movie soundtrack to A Thin Line Between Love and Hate also included a club hit Chocolate City in 1998. He appeared in a remixed version of Sounds of Blackness, Hold On, A Change Is Coming, which sampled Zapp's Do Why Diddy Blow That Thing. Roger last recorded on the song Master of the Game from rapper Kool Keith's album Black Elvis, Lost in Space. On April 25, 1999, a Sunday, Lester Troutman already had 25 voicemail messages. Before he could check them, the phone rang. Have you heard? It was singer Shirley Murdock, a longtime friend of Zapp, the seminal 80s funk band Lester had formed with his brothers more than 2 decades earlier. Heard what? He said. It's Larry, she sobbed. He's dead. Lester's next question was both inevitable and horrifying. His oldest brother was dead, and his thoughts immediately turned to his best friend and other brother. Where's Roger? Shot as well, Murdock replied, by Larry. That's where memory gets hazy for Lester, where he loses all understanding of time and space. Tensions have been mounting between Larry and Roger, over money, over the family business, over Roger's career as a solo artist and Larry's role as his manager. But not even their own family saw this coming. Larry Troutman had shot his superstar baby brother. He had put 4 bullets filled with love and hate into Roger's torso in an alley behind the family's recording studio in Dayton, Ohio. Then Larry turned the gun on himself, leaving the first family of Ohio funk stunned and grieving. The shooting reverberated far beyond the Troutman family, far beyond Dayton city limits. Roger Troutman had been a funk visionary, the man who'd popularized the vocoder talkbox as an instrument and one of the most frequently sampled artists in the history of hip-hop, particularly in the influential strain known as West Coast funk. His murder and the unthinkable way it went down was unforeseeable, unfathomable, and inexplicable. It was not the way Roger's remarkable life was supposed to end. Lester Troutman ran out into the street, dropped to his knees, and cried. Police found Roger Troutman at about 20 minutes past 7 that April morning in 1999 in the alley behind Roger T. Enterprises, the family's Salem Avenue recording studio. Roger had 4 bullets from a .357 Smith & Wesson revolver in his torso, 2 in the front and 2 in the back. Witnesses said he'd been shot as he tried to get out of the passenger seat of a black sedan. Minutes later, dispatchers got a call. A black Lincoln had slammed into a tree less than a mile away. When officers arrived at the 2100 block of Harvard Boulevard, They found Larry Troutman in the driver's seat, dead from a self-inflicted shot to the head. The bullet, a coroner later confirmed, came from the same .357. My brothers and I rode around and tried to collect our thoughts, says Lester of the days following the murder-suicide. We went to my sister's house, and we wouldn't let nobody come in for a week. We got through it with love and bonding. A week before was Columbine, and I think there was some type of military conflict going on. My mom was watching TV, and she was like, I can understand how all those boys' mothers feel. That killed me. Word of the shootings ricocheted around Dayton, with pastors somberly reporting the news during Sunday services. The community was stunned. It was just so unthinkable, says Dale DeGroat. Larry was the guy in the beginning who told me a lot of money is going to cross your hands, but never let the money be more important than the people. Nobody knows exactly why Larry did what he did, but the family members say Roger wanted to break off the business relationship with his older brother and manager. Roger's career, independent of Zapp, was on an upswing. And just when Roger's fortunes could have brought new money into the flailing Troutman enterprises, he was asking for a split from Zapp, and particularly from Larry's management. But it was almost certainly more than purely an issue of money. Roger was 47 years old. Larry was 54. For more than a quarter of a century, from Little Roger and the Vals to Roger and the Human Body to Zapp and Roger to just Roger, they'd been a part of a team. Now, Roger wanted to break that up. At a certain point, Roger wanted to do his own thing, says Terry, which presented a conflict, and so, therefore, you've got a conflict that was deeper than business. It was their whole life they'd had together. And then for it to break off, that was a strong move, man. Strong move. Asked if he resents Larry for taking his brother and best friend, Lester answers quickly, of course I resent it. I resent that my brother Roger is gone more than anything else in the world. I resent whatever sickness came over Larry that caused him to do something like that. Meanwhile, Zapp has reassembled without Roger and had begun touring. The group recently appeared at Verizon Wireless Amphitheater in Irvine alongside funk and hip-hop stars ranging from the Gap Band to Morris Day and The Time to Dougie Fresh and the Sugar Hill Gang. The show, a tribute to Roger Troutman, marked the first time Zapp had performed in front of such a massive crowd without the band's charismatic lead singer and guitarist. People see us and say we haven't lost it, says DeGroat, but the truth of the matter is that we lost everything. God can restore. Roger's not replaceable, but they say that if you have ever built anything solid, anything of value, that it will last long after you're gone. Roger and Larry Troutman were laid to rest with a joint funeral 6 days after the shooting in Monroe, Ohio, halfway between the brothers' native Hamilton and their business and residential home in Dayton. Some 2,000 to 3,000 friends, relatives, and fans packed Solid Rock Church for the service. Hundreds more had to settle for a closed-circuit feed outside the main sanctuary. Bootsy Collins was there to pay his respects to the musicians he'd helped break more than 2 decades earlier, as were members of fellow funk elite the Gap Band, the Ohio Players, and Lakeside. Blues singer Gerald Levert sent flowers, as did Warner Brothers. And Rufus Troutman III, nephew to Roger and Larry, performed Amazing Grace. They sang it naturally through a talkbox. Murdoch spoke on her musical career and relationship with Roger and Larry Troutman, who died on April 25th of 1999. The brothers both took a chance on the singer at the beginning of her career and helped her at a time she was unknown. The As We Lay singer credited God for her life and career turning out so well, and also saying it was her father that helped her deal with losing the brothers who were her mentors. The Toledo native met Roger and Larry Troutman at the start of her career. The brothers from Ohio then made her a backup singer in their funk band Zapp. Fame came for Shirley when she sang the ballad about sleeping with a married man in 1987. The song became number 23 on Billboard Hot 100 chart and is considered her most successful song. The husband singer revealed that Roger helped her leave the label in 1998 when she wanted to pursue a gospel music career. His and Larry's death a year later not only left her distraught, but also shaken to her core. The actress also told the news outlet that it was her faith and the love between those the brothers left behind that helped her overcome their deaths, adding that when things happen that don't make sense, it is better to come to terms with it and hold on to the love you have. In 2012, Roger Troutman's 33-year-old son, Brent Lynch, was jailed for quite a long time for committing murder. Brent is serving a 32-year sentence for murdering his ex-girlfriend, Carolyn Leet, age 32. Brent Laner Lynch was sentenced Thursday, November 1st, 2012, to 386 months by Ramsey County District Judge Robin Millenaker. Before the judgment, Brent entered an Alford plea on September 14th of that year. With an Alford plea, a defendant does not necessarily admit the crime, but concedes the evidence most likely would convince a jury of his guilt. Apart from the jail time, he was ordered to pay $10,325.97 to Leet's mother, brother, and sisters. This included funeral costs. She died of traumatic head injuries. Leet, an artist and nanny, was found in bed, partially unclothed, in the defendant's home in the 800 block of West Minnehaha Avenue in St. Paul. Leet was bleeding from her nose, mouth, and eyes. She also had what appeared to be defensive scratches on her arms and hands. Moreover, there was blood splatter on the wall, about 12 inches in diameter. According to the court documents, Brent beat Leet to death after they returned to his home at 4 a.m. after a heavy night of drinking. 2 hours after they got home, Brent called his Aunt Glenda asking for help with Carolyn. The aunt, not knowing what she was walking into, went and found Brent with Carolyn's unresponsive and bloodied body. After the sentence, Leet's mother had this to say: "I am Carolyn's mother, and I taught her to love. And now I find myself with a hate I didn't have before. It eats away at my insides and leaves the void left by Carolyn's death even greater. It wasn't supposed to go down like this," Brent Lynch said after the murder, according to the complainant. "This wasn't supposed to happen. It was the alcohol." When he was moved to the jail, Brent addressed the jail staff thus: "Please be nice to me. I'll be here for a long time." Rest in peace to Roger Troutman, and what an unfortunate incident that happened with his son and his girlfriend. Most of these artists just pass away so tragically and have such tragic experiences in life. But it doesn't take away from the beautiful music that they left behind. Peace and love.